All right, folks, we've got a cool one for you here. It turns out that there is actually a tournament going on right now in Asia. It's Korea versus Japan. Welcome back to the channel. We have got quite the exciting few days for you, or if you're watching on the YouTube side, or you could have been watching live on Twitch, by the way, twitch.tv/killerpigeon if you want to catch these games back to back to back to back, sandwiched together. But if you want to wait on the YouTube side, what we've got ahead of you in the next few days is a mixture of 1v1s and 3v3s between some of the top players in the Asia region, as it's going to be the Korea versus Japan event, which means we're going to be featuring people like Kiwian, we're going to have Chart, we're going to have Relic, and plenty more, so stay tuned. But opening this up, we have got two familiar faces to the channel. We've seen both of these lads before, one-on-one here on Dry Arabia. It is going to be Chart in the red playing as the Rus up against Kiwian playing as the Mongols. Kiwian, aka Top, for those unfamiliar, who is a pretty well-known StarCraft 2 player. Has been retired for a bit, but very talented nonetheless. Has managed to stay fairly competitive on the leaderboards as well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, at the time of recording, 59th on the leaderboard. For comparison, his opponent, Chart, I believe, has snuck up very quickly. So he's got two. He's got his Risky Dice account and Chart, and both of them are in the top 100, 61 and 91st rank, respectively. So overall, he be killing it, all right, I think is the best way to think about this. He's doing a damn good job. There's going to be plenty of other action. If you want to catch more names, be sure to follow this one through, because we've got more people coming up, such as, I think Relic would be one of the most notable ones that we're going to get to see as the day goes on. And I believe there are going to be one or two other upcoming Japanese players, because Chart is the Japanese player, by the way, guys. He played Age of Empires 2 competitively. I think at the time he was considered to maybe be like one of the top, if not the top, Japanese Age of Empires 2 player, mainly because I don't think there was that many players actually from AoE 2, from Japan in AoE 2. I think he actually hopped on quite early and made a name for himself, and now he's here in Age of Empires 4 trying to do the same. So this tournament, I haven't got the exact number of games. I'm going to assume, judging by the last one, that it's going to be probably majority of points out of 7 or 9 games. The last one these guys ran, it had a very weird num to it, actually. It was ran back in November, I believe it was. And they had 8 games played total. Yes, so they had a final 3v3 game played in addition to the event. That one was just one-on-one, so it's very different. But in that last game, Japan took the honor, right? They actually won 4-2 overall up against the Koreans. I believe the format they used was first to 4 points. It might be similar here, and we'll have to find out. But open it up, as I said, 1v1. And in the Mongol and Rus kind of engagement, this is going to be a little bit exciting to watch, because I think these two are evolving again. I think people start to realize Rus have some potential in the early phases of the game. I don't necessarily expect to see that here, just because, to be honest, there's not enough tree lines for the hunting cabin to be fully tapped into per se. But there is this transition if the game goes long enough where we will see hunting cabins start to get utilized. A lot of top level players have identified that if you're playing on maps like Highview, hunting cabins are great to play into immediately. If you're playing on maps like this, however, hunting cabins are a side effect of a game drawing out later. So if the game goes longer, what you tend to do is you tend to find yourself moving to these pocket expansions, right? Like this berry bush here, or maybe you're going to find the deer here. Say you weren't playing Pro Scouts. It's never going to happen. They're definitely playing Pro Scouts. But say you weren't, you'd also move here with a hunting cabin, and you'd look for that double value of, I'm going to get gold off the tree line here, but it's also a food drop-off point I want. And we even see a lot of these Rus players, if they have a lot of control on the map, they move out, and these hunting cabins next to these tree lines aren't only that, they end up being a farm drop-off location as they set up an economy around it. We'll see if that happens. It can be risky to do it up against the Mongols, because remember, Mongols are one of those more aggressive civs that do raid a lot, so they can punish you for going for pocket economy expansions. So we'll see if he does that. In the early phase of the game, though, look at this play. Kiwian doing what I'd expect out of a Mongol player. Moves across, spams the scouts out. Remember, at the very start of the game, you can actually outmass the Rus player. For a start, they're slower to build in the hunting cabin than you are usually to build in the stable. And then you'll have that double production that's very cost-effective in these scouts. As you can see, it only costs 60 stone to get your secondary scout, doubling up that production rate. And that does mean he's going to prevent this wood line. That's actually crippling for Chart. He can reach the other wood line, but of course this is the safer, more secure one, which is why he sticks to it. I love this move instead. If he went over here, there's a risk your opponent moves across and puts an outpost here, and you're denied and you waste another 50 wood. This is very hard for Kiwian to now wrap around and actually pressure. Or rather, it's hard for him to realize it's here without wrapping around first. And I don't expect him to wrap very quickly. So tech up will be complete. Kiwian Still lagging behind a little bit. Vision-wise, he doesn't see this. This is what makes it so good. He's right on the edge of this, but he's wise to it. Kiwian is already moving. I love this. This is heads-up play, right? Like, you see there's no movement across this other wood line. Your opponent has to be hanging around this one, and he's going to spot it. And it should be a second outpost going down soon. So Chart forced into the racks early. This is what I was expecting to come out. We have seen a lot more Roost players have to do this against this pressure. The important detail is he wasn't forced into a Kremlin. The fact he wasn't forced into a Kremlin means Chart can actually still compete. If you had to go for a Kremlin in this matchup, which I've seen one or two high-level players forced to do, the game almost feels done. Like, if you're at any game and you have to build Kremlin instead of Golden Gate, just hit GG and go next. It's the worst feeling in the world. I can't believe that when the game first came out, a lot of high-level Roost players thought the Kremlin was good as well. That was the baffling part. It's like, well, I mean, it's for 4, dude. It's amazing. Yeah, but why? When you rather just make infinite monies, well, not infinite, but when you make damn good exchanges throughout the game, isn't that better? Absolutely. Oh, looks like the Philly should be chased down by the Spearman, so that should bring an end to the shenanigans, and this should be the moment where Kiwian doesn't try to invest more into it. It's not worth trying to boost up again. You just need to use this opportunity to recuperate, look to boost up into the feudal, and get your hands on Pro Scouts in conjunction with that of which the Roost player will, so that you can actually match up to what they're going to do, right? Because the worst thing that could happen here is you give Pro Scouts control over the Chart and let him get most of the deer, and then you just fall back to Pasha straight away. It's pretty game losing. The only good news for him right now is Chart can't afford Pro Scouts. Look at the gold. Send a person out and get that gold. This is quite the folly type mistake right now. Like, he wasn't able to secure. Oh, and oh my God, Kiwian, he's come back for this now. This is painful as Chart. Like, you want to get that 250 bounty unlock, right, for the tier 2 gathering rates. Also, you were just shy on the gold. He finally fixes that, so he should be able to go to Pro Scouts now. And I do wholly expect him to. Needs to be careful with this, though. The village just snuck back in. Spearmen haven't moved. That's a resident sleeper move right there. Chart. Hopefully he'll realize in a moment. If this outpost somehow gets built after all this, it's definitely going to be a face palmer. Meanwhile, in the field, he has the scout numbers, so he's just trying to harass, but still, annoying to miss out on this. The fact that Kiwian also still has not dealt with this. Very AFK kind of moments from both players, just kind of missing the tricks left and right. So let's talk win conditions at this stage, right? So Feudal has been reached for both of them. You were forced into racks early. Chart actually has some flexibility. It doesn't have to be Horse Archers. He could consider Man-at-Arms in this game. I do still expect Horse Archers. For me, Mongols up against Roost, this type of matchup, you could early Magadai, but it's going to be counted out later. I'd rather just see Kiwian commit to a hard eco boom into Castle Age while applying minimal pressure wherever he can with these outpost spams that are continuing at the moment. Reason being is... well, this outpost spams might end very quickly all of a sudden. Luckily for him, the Yam is going to save him here. Gives him the movement speed to just about back away. But yes, the reason I don't want to see him heavily invest is if he goes into Magadai, for example, they seem great at raiding, but at the moment Horse Archers arrive, which they will by about 10 minutes usually, you're going to be completely counted out because they have superior range, their damage is fantastic, and they're more cost-effective. And wow, these villager snipes. Oh my God, he gets a second. Chart not managing it correctly. The arrow slits catch him off guard completely. And this was over something unneeded. He was setting up a second wood line. He didn't need this. He had a spear in place. I don't understand. You're decent margin away from being sniped. There is a risk that your opponent comes around with scout vision and then the outposts hit you anyway. But I think you could have waited on this, or at least there wasn't this desperation where you had to push this many villagers through the front of your TC and lose them like that. I think that's the detail that bugs me. It's a small detail that will definitely matter. And he's going in stable, so it looks like we're going to get mixed up. Chart doesn't care about Horse Archers. This could give him the edge as well. Remember that you can actually dive in. These early knights are cost-effective as long as spears don't come out. And the thing you have to keep in mind is Kiwian, and I believe this did get spotted out by Chart, built into both the archery range and stable. So very unlikely that spears are ever going to come out here. And it goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Like, what's the likely kind of combinations? If you're going for a stable early on, you're probably not thinking about racks. So even if he didn't have this info, even if he didn't scout out directly, he probably anticipates his opponent's going to do stables and archery range to set up for power spike timing in the Castle Age of crossbows and lances. And there we go. Wooden Fortress going down. Should put the end to Kiwian shenanigans. In fact, this villager might just get sniped out. Yeah, he's done. There's no way you can save him. Done and dead. Chart can make this quicker if he animation cancelled, but he should get the final strike anyway. There we go. It's getting a bit dicey. And now the knights are starting to come out. And you have no solution right now if you're Kiwian. You just need to tech up as fast as possible. And he's in the middle of a wonky transition. He's trying to get pastures down as well while he's grabbing all of the carcasses. Carcasses that are also being grabbed by Chart. I think number-wise, it looks like they mainly stuck to their own side, I think. I might be wrong about that. It's possible that maybe Kiwian originally snuck a bunch from his opponent's side, but I think they have more or less just gathered their own carcasses. So not too much in the way of shenanigans happening there. Interesting drops off over here. So he's paranoid about like having to run too close to the outpost. This does mean you've got this very risky exposed location where all of your deer are. Even if you manage to pull your villagers away before your opponent attacks you, the thing that I do expect Kiwian to do if he spots this is he's going to run his scouts in and snatch as many carcasses as possible, with minimum casualties due to the fact that your TC will not be fully in range, right? Only at the edge, at which point he can just back away. A lot of spears invested by Chart at this stage, so it's trying to put them to good use defending this wood expansion. This is kind of an interesting place early on in the game. It is risky, but you don't expect too much aggression at this stage. The problem is Kiwian, yeah, he sees it. He knows about it. So he might attempt to raid it. But I think he just needs to wait. He actually did go for the racks in the end as well. So this will be somewhat unexpected by Chart, but even if he sees his opponent has done it after the fact, he knows he had to slow down his early economy a lot to do so. So Chart has to be feeling confident. Chart has to be careful about this wood surface, by the way. There's just... His economy is stretched the wrong way. You need to give yourself tech room right now. If you had even more people in food and gold, you'd be able to not only keep affording these trades, as he's doing right now occasionally with the wood, but you'd also be able to actually boost up towards castle, which is really what you want. You want to spend as little time in this phase, even with early knights as possible, in my opinion. You want to get that boosted health. You want to get access to boys' fortitude. You want to be able to bulk these lads up. Because you have to understand that Kiwian is going to be boosting himself, right? He hasn't shown much aggression, so his intent is clearly to go into castle age as soon as possible. It's going to be an archery range drop. Wow, this is a very weird game. I don't remember the last time, just past the 11-minute mark, I saw both players having all three of their military buildings. All three types, right? Usually it's two types. And there we go, Knights. This is where it's a terrible value situation. You have less resistance to melee, 190 health, so easy to stab in like that. And this is where it can get very dicey to attempt Knight spamming against Mongols especially. This is where it feels terrible because the reality is you're facing a Civ that can easily just build a spearman a lot of the time. You tried this because you saw he didn't after his initial military buildings. But more importantly, even when you come back around late and you talk about castle on castle matchup, right? While you can get boys' fortitude and have some more health, your opponent is going to have more speed on his lances. So he can always chase you down if he outnumbers you. He can always kite you. And it's going to be very uncomfortable for Chart to play as the game goes on. Nice snipe on a villager in the meantime, but the charge in, look, it's just so easy. He gets on top of him, stabs it, he's almost dead. Final hit. Oh my god, the charge got cancelled at the last tick. We'll keep him alive. But this is what I'm talking about. It's just so dangerous because remember, they're buffed to 1.44 movement speed compared to your, what, 1.62? And then on top of that, the other detail a lot of people forget is that when these spearmen get close enough, they enter charge status where they get bonus movement speed. You see on these lads here, 1.56. These guys aren't juiced up on movement speed either. See, they go down to 1.25. So you see how powerful it is. Wrap around attempt. Early Knight getting a range. Means you can get close enough for the first strike, but it's a veteran car and you're just wasting your time. Castle Age is going to be complete, more or less identically, but Chart now has the advantage of going after the gold. Right? He needs to get his hands on these relics, and then he can afford as many knights as possible. He needs them even more so in this matchup, because remember, you're up against the step redoubt, right? Kiwian can play this across, and then he's boosting his gold economy by 50%, which means for right now, Kiwian has 3 people. If he puts 10 people in there, he essentially has 15 people working on gold, right? Due to the extra 50% drop-off that is fabricated out of thin air, so he's actually getting even more value out of each individual vein. Meanwhile, these outposts have been ignored a long time. Very, very slowly dying, finally. I think he at least gets this lumber camp, which is cool, because it means he gets 50 food and 50 gold back. So while the outpost wouldn't have fully paid for itself, in conjunction with the early harassment, the force of the second lumber camp, forcing him off the woodline early as well, you feel pretty damn good if you're the Mongol player about this. You feel pretty good about your army in the center, but one thing Kiwian is missing here is the outpost crawl. He needs to prep for it soon. I love that he's building the prayer camp, prayer tent, not camp, because you can't let your opponent have these for free. A lot of civs have certain strategies to utilize up against the Roos's Relic Rush, right? You can wall in, for example. Roos on Roos, you might wall in to protect. Stone walls from other civs. You don't have walling options as Mongols. Your only option really is to collect yourself. So I like that he's doing this. You can't be forced to guard them, right? If you have to run back and forth across the map, it's going to backfire. You're just not going to be able to consistently block your opponent out, especially if you have melee units like this. You run these scouts across, your opponent just picks up the relic and runs off, right? And you don't ever kill him. So, second Warrior Monk coming out. First relic to be banked soon, moving out for the second. He'll definitely get half of these. It was always going to go this way, because remember, you had to spend an extra 200 wood to get the prayer tent. Even if you build it straight away, you're talking about building shamans which cost more gold than the warrior monks do out the Abbey Trinity, because remember the Abbey Trinity gives a 50% discount on the cost of warrior monks. And then you have old man syndrome. A little bit of arthritis has kicked in, right? Because these lads walk around like they've got a full diaper, as you're about to see. Mr. 1.15 movement speed. That is with Yam, by the way. He genuinely looks like he's busting for the loo, doesn't he? When he has the Yam, anyway. Toilet around here. Disabled for old people, maybe. Somewhere. Must find toilet. There you go. He'll at least get one of these relics. Probably gets two, but three will definitely be going the way of Chart. So I guess that's a nice gold trickle. Also, we'll have other ways to fabricate gold, right? Courtesy of the hunting cabins. You can just build them around the tree lines. Hasn't really done so far, which is surprising. He has surplus wood at all times. I feel like this is a missed trick by Chart. And he's building man-at-arms. I at least like this composite force. Man-at-arms is just a brunt force front line. Because you don't necessarily know what you're going to be facing, right? You haven't seen the full hand of Kiwian. You just know he has flexibility. He doesn't have an Uvu anymore, though. He does need to sort that soon. And the next Uvu is really far away. This doesn't feel good if you're Kiwian. You really want to, this kind of matchup, you want to have your military district on the front, not at the back. And your front options are very limited, very far away. So you're probably going to play towards this back one if you play towards any. Or you might even think about trying for Imperial Age down the line and just not focus on these natural Uvu points too much. He did at least go for a second TC, so he's going to have that scalability. This is an important detail, actually. A lot of Mongol players miss this trick. If you're not keeping up aggression by the 15-minute mark, you just need to fall back and give yourself scalability. And it's something that isn't really being matched right now. You can see Chart, he's building a military force because he's expecting a problem. Now that he discovers there isn't a problem, he's going to move out to try and snipe some problems himself, right? AKA these Relic, Nab, and Mongols, but not able to do so. And it means that you're being denied on the gold front. You don't know yet that your opponent is scaling, because the other cool thing is Kiwian with this placement. You can see Chart, he never even found this point on the map. That's how well hidden this is. And he knows that Chart hasn't been here in a while, probably isn't going to be here in a while, because of how tight the formation is. And it means that you're hiding your economy scaling, and by the time your opponent realizes it's there, it's going to be a danger point for him. Oh, there was another Uvu over here, by the way. There's a stone point here. So that's good. I'm glad he kept it on the front. If you had to go behind, as I said, it gives big weakness, and there's no other nearby Uvu. You just want to be able to push out your units and immediately put them at the front of the base, right? You don't want to expose your economy first. And the fact that you have your military district still at the front also means you keep this TC hidden for an extra 2-3 minutes at least. I really would like to see a TC expansion out of Chart, though. Chart, it's wonky, right? You're playing against Mongols and you're playing these pocket economies. There's so much value to be had in a second TC, so that you can actually take bigger risks. Because you understand that it's going to be very hard to constantly defend yourself against the Yam movement speed raiders here from the Mongols. Here we go, man-at-arms now moving in. This will fare very well. Remember, no man-at-arms built on the other side, and only a few crossbowmen. This could actually backfire very quickly for Kiwian. He did at least get the Mangonel out. Very effective up against so many clumped units. And they have got the Yam movement speed. He's going to turn around the Mangonel shot. Chart. He doesn't back off. Does just at the last second. It looks like most of that damage was brunted by the man-at-arms. Man-at-arms now holding as the horse archers back up, but they're in staggered formation, which means they're not getting effective DPS out. And you already lost the front line. So it should be a back away very quickly. The problem is, we talked about this before, when you're up against any type of cavalry and they have that Yam movement speed, they'll be able to chase you down. Even the spearmen keeping touch here. 1.44 compared to the 1.62 movement speed. Anytime you turn around, you're going to lose another horse archer. And you're going to lose more anyway. Nice repel. Kiwian now taking control of the center. Needs to decap the sacred site, stop that gold trickle. And remember, we said Kiwian's scaling more, so if he's equaling you on the military front and he's boosting past you on the economy front, this does lead to a quick Imperial Age timing. And remember that a lot of these Roost players tend to be very fickle when it comes to going up with Imperial, right? It's usually if it's a complete stagnant game, nothing's happening, sure, they'll go for it. But otherwise, they just keep spamming Horse Archers, right? And although the Man-at-Arms is a nice mix-up, I just don't see the value of it in this game. You understand you're up against Mongols, right? They've got better movement speed on their own man-at-arms. They probably could have crossbows in the mix. And then there's also the fact that as they just shoot, they're going to build into mangonels. They're going to build in the field into these huge weapons, something you can't do. I would have said that Knights was a better play to stay on. And considering Chart has huge surplus on the gold front, he could have afforded the Knights, and the Knights probably would have had a little bit more value. Yes, you're up against Spearmen, but it's a 50-50 split. If you split the lines, if you bait them in a little bit, you can still wrap around and do a lot of damage. Even a small group of Knights at this stage, actually, I'd be a fan of. I don't think he needs to double down, just because it is Yam movement speed, right? But when you get this neutral ground especially, that's when this composite force of 3 types of units that Chart can be pushing out could actually just break Kiwian's back. It looks like he does still have a few Knights out. They were just trying to prowl around the back, looking for snipe opportunities. None found yet. Chart still delaying his switch over into farmlands. His wood is drained, right? Because he has to replace so many Horse Archers now. And that is the teeter-totter balance of playing on Dry Arabia's Roost. Like, you haven't got this fat infinite tree line. It's not like you're playing on, say, I don't know, Black Forest. I say that as if we ever see Roost on Black Forest. We don't. But he still hasn't dealt with this outpost yet. He can finally get rid of that, and I'd be a big fan of him doing it soon before this wood line runs out. The last thing you want is for this wood line to dry up. You'd be ready to move across, but you haven't dealt with this outpost yet. And then you have to lose 30 seconds of gathering to send people over to burn it down. Can't wrap around. Spots out people in the stone. This should make you a little bit cautious if you are Kiwian. Your opponent could either be planning to keep drop on these sacred sites, or he could be looking for TC booms. Knights in the meantime. Actually, nice wraparound. Snipes out a few, and he finally gets the tip off. So now Chart has a wonky choice to make. Do I go for a TC and play catch up, or do I just play aggressively into the center? Is it too late to play aggressively in the center? Because what Chart doesn't know that we do is how long it's been there. And now he'll get the tip off. Imperial Age complete for Kiwian. Really good timing for a Mongol player here. And this is where you're really frustrated, right? You should have been scouting this out much sooner. You should have seen that secondary TC. You should have seen the Imperial Age coming as a result of that secondary TC. But now you're stuck here in the Castle Age, and you're going to be forced to fight. You can't wait. Because if you wait, it's going to be quality and quantity on the side of Kiwian. Only a few man-arms pushing in. Double mangonel as well. Looking to force that engagement. Crossbows backing up. That outpost is crucial. He needs to get rid of it. It's allowing him to retreat so quickly. He'll finally address it. Meanwhile, Sacred Site being decapped on the east side. Capped on the west. Nope. No Warrior Monk here. Needs to send one out. Finally is on the way. Should have been here a lot sooner. He's had Spearmen sitting here for what feels like a minute. Sacred Site, not even decapped. Wow. Okay, that... He didn't want to leave troops. He wanted to pressure. He feels this game might come to a close soon, and he might be right. So he needs to get in there and do some damage. And it's so hard. With the movement speed in the favor of Mongols, with the mangonel here as well, forcing you to just dive and essentially dodge every single shot coming in. It forces you to do this. You're trying to wrap round. You need to be careful, though. If you go too deep, you could actually find yourself in a situation where it's very hard to retreat. I think he's looking for the military district, but this is too predictable. Kiwian's going to be able to cut you off. More mangonel's building in the center in the meantime. And is he saving up? Chart is starting to actually save up. Despite he's building out units at a reasonable pace still, he is starting to get the surplus to look at Imperial Age. And I think that's where the game could teeter-totter back a little bit, just because Streltsy could do a lot of work here. The problem is, and this is why, by the way, Streltsy don't get seen very often. It's not just that the Roost Horse Archers are so powerful. It's actually more to do with the current meta. The current meta revolves around Mangonels. Streltsy are incredibly weak against Mangonels. It's the biggest counter. It's so easy to catch them out because they don't have great health, they move slowly, and they cost way too much when you think about that, right? And although they're an amazing unit over time when standing still, and they, as it says even there, one of the big pluses, it costs less than a hand cannoneer will have bigger benefits than a hand cannoneer. It is just the fact that you'll get picked apart by Mangonels, and even with that discount, it's so painful to think about how much you lose, right? Let's say a Mangonel hits, 2 Mangonels hit into your Streltsy line of 10. That Streltsy line dies. That is 900 food, 900 gold. Your total resource count is far higher than the Mangonel count, right? That just counted you. And you lost it so easily because the range on your Streltsy sucks compared to Mangonel's. Where I think Streltsy could start to see some more plays is in like team games when people put down walls. There's some epic kind of uses there, right? With the additional range. Especially holding statically on those walls, but you're not going to see him in these, not in the 1v1s. Maybe later in this series, remember, we have got a dosage of 3v3s in with the 1v1s here. These outposts, they're starting to become a problem. Remember, he's upgrading these, right? He's turning them into quite the bursters. You can see they've got the Springles manned inside, arrow slits, the whole kit and caboodle. Kiwian now moving out towards the center. Doesn't want to lose his sacred site. He's cherished precious here. Even sends the villagers in. Screw it, he's got surplus. Mangonel shot to scare him away. Look at the speed of these spearmen. Chasing in 1.44. They get even higher when they get into charge range. And that will give him control of the center. Mangonels and Spirals nearby for Chart. But Chart's going to have to fight soon. Kiwian's trying to force his hand here. And there's just so many man-at-arms here. The elite man-at-arms as well. The tech up. Is Chart underway with it? He's got no food. He's got... Oh my god. He actually doubled down on the army. He hasn't got a tech up. And Kiwian has to be getting impatient now, right? He's like, I feel really good. I've got a lot of control. I don't need to sit back much longer. My army is approaching pop cap, and I have quality. Why would I give you the breathing room to get back into this game? I'm just going to complete my army, get the rest of my tech ups, and then I'm going to plow straight through you. And he's getting into the shutter triggers. And the shutter trigger is going to be fantastic here. He spotted the Springles that if this was Imperial Age, Roos would dominate with, right? Because you'd have the shutter triggers yourself, and you'd have the unique tech that Roos get that gives 1.5 additional tower range. He doesn't have that. He's nowhere near Imperial. And because you see he keeps building more of these troops, you're probably tipped off to the fact he's not going to get Imperial. He has no food. He has ridiculous quantities of gold. He has AFK workers all over the place. 11 of them sitting right here. Some on the farms, some of them where the gold lines were. Right now, Chart is missing so many opportunities, and it is starting to hurt him and hurt me watching. And all of this, by the way, comes because he's transitioning. He needs another 2 minutes to get up to Imperial, right? The reason he looked so weak here is because he identified he needed the surplus wood to prep farmlands because he was running out of bushes, he was running out of everything to pick dry, right? So he needed to make this transition. The fact he didn't choose to do so earlier and double down on an early aggressive force that backfired is why Chart is now on the edge of losing this game. A few horsemen just scouting out what's happening over here. Kiwian building up his forces, moving out in the center. Pushing forward. Needs more outposts placed down. Needs to bring a few villagers forward. He's going to lose that yam speed soon. Spirals on the side. They're pretty exposed. They're out of position right now. And they're going to be picked apart. The shot trigger's giving the additional range. They're in with the man-at-arms. Going to lose the siege line. Mangonel's looking for the shots, but they're getting close too quick. The yam movement speed is too good. The rate of fire is too good. And Kiwian is going to run through the forces. Chart looks like he's lost the main fight. The man-at-arms, they chased out to the side. They were completely out of position. If they were here, maybe it's different. But now it's looking done. Kiwian, he left this turkey in the oven long enough, and now it is looking cooked as Chart is looking chalked. And even building back rams on the front. Really well played by Kiwian. I love the patience shown, right? He doesn't get over-aggressive. He understands that in this situation, tech booming is the perfect option, especially when he sneaks that secondary TC. And Chart, because he doesn't give ample aggression, because the unit transition feels a bit flimsy, and there's no solid plan in the middle of that push into the center, it leads to this later on. Just an easy cruise through, a victory for Kiwian, and taking the first game for Korea.